I'm a hair mineral analysis expert. I have a background in functional medicine, and I educate people using HTMA testing to maximize health, erase debilitating symptoms, and gain energy. I'm a multi-time kettlebell sport world champion, and I'm constantly searching for high-performance pros from all over the world to bring you this human optimization podcast. My name is Lisa Pitel-Killah. Welcome, everybody, to a brand new episode of the Human Optimization Podcast, and I'm so excited to tell you that here with me today, I have Jenn Pike. She is a new graduate from Functional Diagnostic Nutrition Institute. She has been a registered holistic nutritionist for over 19 years, a medical exercise specialist, a registered yoga instructor, a stock Pilates instructor, and so much more. She's also a guest holistic expert for Breakfast Television, Global, and Rogers, and writes for numerous magazines. Jenn is a best-selling author of The Simplicity Project, and we're going to hear all about that today. The creator of 2 revolutionary women's online health courses and 2 amazing video-based movement programs. Wow, what a list of everything that you've done. That is so amazing.
Well, I've been in the industry for as long as I can remember. I mean, even before I was earning my first paycheck, I grew up in an environment in my household where I was at the gym with my dad from the age of 6 years old. I was watching my mom go off to her jazzercise classes with girlfriends, and we lived a pretty healthy, active lifestyle. And so I started teaching group exercise classes when I was 17, like aerobics and step class and all of that. And I knew that that's what I was going to end up doing as a career. So I went to school for human anatomy, biomechanics, and physiology, and originally started working with a lot of athletes and decided that I wanted to pursue personal training full time. I loved it. And then at the same time, I was a director for a couple of different facilities in Toronto, at Sports Clubs of Canada and a few others. And I was also working at home in Newmarket, where I grew up, at a gym, and primarily working with a lot of female clients. And they were moms. I was not a mom at the time yet. And I loved working with the athletes, but it got to a point where I was recognizing they had a team set in place for their success. They had a nutritionist, they had the trainer, they had the different modalities of therapy. And these moms, these other women I was working with, they did not have that village and that community. It was them trying to carve out these bits and pieces for themselves. And the exercise, we got great results. And then we would work on their nutrition and we would get better results. But I kept feeling like something was missing. And that's what really led me down the path of diving headfirst into women's health and hormones and understanding the impact of our endocrine system, in connection with that. And then I had my first child 14 years ago, and I was like, oh, okay.
Now this all makes sense. What is happening?
Now, exactly. Now I get it. And that really, like the universe says, you are given the teacher that you, the student, require most. And that was my first child, my daughter. And I'm so grateful, for the experience of raising a girl. And I also have a boy as well. They're 13 and 11 now. And I now get to spend every day in practice teaching women what I believe that we all should have been taught. Didn't have to try and decode all of these messages, these symptoms, and these confusing signs that we get from our body, and then feel like we're butting our head up against the wall when we try to seek out, help from our family doctor or whomever it may be. And I created a lot of these programs for that woman who wants to be empowered, who wants to be educated. She really does, and who deserves that? I mean, we all deserve to understand we've been given the greatest gift of life, which is the human body, and we have no flipping clue how to tune into, more than half of its potential.
Right. Yeah, it's very true. Very true.
Yeah. So there's that side of it. And then the movement piece, because I've loved it so much. I actually have 4 series now that I created out of my home that are all 30 minutes or less. So I have Rock Solid Booty, Sleeveless Strength, and Fit, Fierce, and Fluid. And then I actually have an entire series called Synced, which is a movement series based on a woman's 4 phases of her menstrual cycle. And there's also a program in there for women who no longer cycle that is based on the lunar calendar. So pretty much if there's something exciting with women's health and hormones, I'm sinking my teeth into it.
That's amazing. So tell me how you entered the world of functional medicine, because it's such a broad, diverse world, and
It
you know,
is.
and we're here.
Yeah. I am a total nerd when it comes to research and just understanding the bigger picture of what's going on. And you and I were talking before we went live, and I was telling you how in practice, I was getting to a certain point and certain level of results with clients, but I kept feeling like there was something else. And I knew that the testing was a big part of it. And so I had been doing blood analysis in practice for over a decade. And since 2017 started to offer the Dutch test for the women in my program, which that honestly it completely transformed what I was able to see going on in their body and really create that cross correlation, taking a look at the results, but then also understanding who this woman I was talking to was and what was going on in her specific life, and not creating a catch-all approach for every single person just because they were a woman. And so then when I started to look into, I had been referring out a lot of my testing to other practitioners because I didn't have the ability to either run the test, or I didn't understand how to interpret the test. And so a few years ago, I made the decision that I was ready to up level my knowledge, and I wanted to offer more in my practice. And so I registered for the Functional Diagnostic Nutrition program, and I loved it. It really opened up this lens of what was possible when we allowed ourselves to look into different areas of the body, and to really stand back and see that, we're not living in a container in terms of, if you have, period problems, you don't just have period problems, or if you have, diabetes, you do not just have diabetes. And so it's been a gift. I'm still, as a practitioner, you're also trying to not overwhelm your clients who you're working with testing everything under the sun or giving them too much at once. And it's been a really, really great journey.
Amazing. And you're right. I think we really have to be strategic in the testing that we use, right? And because it can be a bit overwhelming, and sometimes you've got a lot of different things coming at a protocol at once as well when you do a little bit too much. So really important to streamline that. But amazing that you got that point where everything's individual, right? And I think a lot of health coaches use more of a generalized approach, and sometimes that's not the best strategy. Yeah.
And I teach a lot of group online programs like the Hormone Project, which is my big signature course. They come in as a group. I teach the weekly classes as a group, but then we shape shifted and molded to that individual. Because I do really believe that there is such power in community medicine as well. Yeah. Right. And so, especially for women, I think we put ourselves on an island of isolation, which I know a lot of people are feeling right now at this time in history, where we believe it's only us going through it. And so it helps them to get through some of that anxiousness or that trauma or those self-limiting beliefs when they can hear another woman's story.
And who has the same problems, right? Or who's experiencing the same thing. Absolutely.
Yeah, exactly.
So we're going to talk all about this. So let's just expand on that, since you touched on it, because it is so amazing. So let's talk about that. I mean, how does it all work, and kind of what's entailed?
So the Hormone Project actually came from me running my own first Dutch test on myself back in early 2017. And I have been living, this healthy lifestyle for, at that point, I mean, it was I started when I was 15, really living the way that I'm living right now. And I'm 40. So this was when I was just 37. I had done the test. And I ran the test because my thing is, I'm not going to offer something if I've not done it on myself and I don't 100%. Really understand it intimately. Yeah. So I was expecting to get these results back and be like, perfect. And when they came back, I was blown away how many red flags I had. And I just thought to myself, if I have this going on in my body and I'm not super symptomatic, and I wasn't connecting to the fact that these things were going on, what in the world is going on truly in the bodies of the women that I'm working with? Yeah. So I started to put together protocols for my own body to turn the switch down, to make these red flags become more neutralized and to be healthier. And when I redid my test 9 months later, I had completely flipped the switch on everything. And so I knew I was onto something. And I had created this protocol I refer to it as the GLAG protocol, and it starts in the gut. We work with the liver, adrenals, and thyroid, and then come back to the gut to get this really full encompassing package for a woman's body. And so what I did is I beta tested with some of my clients at the time and said, look, I've created what I think to be is a really, fantastic protocol. Can I run you through this? And so I took 10 women for 10 weeks, and every week and this has evolved now. I'm going into my 14th round of this.
That is amazing.
And yeah, it's been amazing. And so now I work with 40 women at a time, 3 times a year. And I have a team that I've built that helps support as well. And so every week for 10 weeks, they're back in school and the subject is them. So this course is specific to their endocrine system and everything that is impacting it. So each week we have a course curriculum, they have a workbook and notes, and it's very interactive as well. They get 3 private consultations with myself. So the first one is timeline history. So I want to know as much as I can about this woman from her past that has led up to who she is today sitting in front of me. And it is virtual. So it's Zoom, how we are right now. I want to know things like, does she know what her mother's pregnancy was like with her? What was her health as a child? How old was she when you got her menstrual cycle? What were her fertility years like? Like everything. And then we do the blood analysis. We run Dutch. We look at different things like GI map testing. I'm going to be implementing hair trace mineral analysis testing moving forward. That's something that I am just bringing into my practice right now. And then from there, they go through these protocols. So I have the protocol set out as they're moving through the gut support, liver, adrenal, and thyroid, with 3 different approaches, meaning that I have meal plans and approaches for somebody who is vegetarian or vegan. I have an approach for someone who is more on a leaky gut or a SIBO-based protocol. And then I have one that is for the omnivore who, that's me, like eating a little bit of everything. And then supplementation they learn about as well too, and their movement. So they're given a guided movement series as well throughout this. And then we have our report of findings sessions where I actually take them through, pull up every test online so they can see it and walk them through their results and explain to them what's actually happening in their body. Because I truly believe the power is not in telling someone what to do. It is helping them understand the why behind the what that is going on.
So important.
And it is. And I just, most of them end up in tears, not because they're scared or upset with the results. It's because they are relieved. They are relieved that it is starting to make sense, that this is not something that is just living in their head that they've made up. They're not being dramatic, that this is valid, that when they get to see their own chemistry, like I get goosebumps talking about it because it's so powerful. And it changes all of a sudden. Now the stories they used to tell themselves, like, I don't have the willpower to not eat this, or I don't have the motivation to move my body. And how I do this with them is I teach them about their results. And then I pull back up the words they used in our first session, the things they told me. And I see, do you see now how this is connecting? And so when they have these clicking aha moments, all of a sudden that woman is off her butt and now doing the things that she has been talking about forever, because she realizes how much of this is in her, and it is really up to her to make that change, and she can do it. So it's my most favorite thing to teach. I love it because literally in a couple of months, their menstrual cycles are transformed, their sleep is transformed, their sex drive, their skin, their hair, they're pooping every day, which is like the most exciting thing for them.
And so common, constipation for women. It's incredible. It is incredible. So that is a big deal.
So, and then they have their final session, which is really where I'm helping to set them up for, okay, what next? How do you take the last 2.5 months of being in an immersion where you're really learning and you've had this community and this support, and now how do you integrate this into the rest of your life in a way where you don't feel like, well, now I got to go do another program, or I've fallen off the bandwagon. So,
yeah, that's amazing. And what an incredible, again, just the journey for those women is so incredible. And to be able to see those changes happen in, just under a few months is pretty powerful.
The women that are mothers, I actually encourage them to invite their daughters into the class and to share the content with them. Because, I'm raising, my oldest is 13, who's a girl, and what they're being taught is not everything they need to know.
Right.
And I think it's really powerful. And we're actually, the Synced community that I lead, which is the movement based, is in May becoming the Synced Academy, which is actually going to be like going back to school to learn about your menstrual cycle. And we're creating a junior academy in that for young girls ages 8 and above, like tweens and teens, so that they understand body, what's normal. Do not be embarrassed about this. There's no shame around it. And just trying to get this next generation to really empower. And they're a very cool generation right now. Like I look at my daughter and her friends, and they're ready for it. Like they want the information. They don't want to hear it from me. Like when I talk about it, they're like, la, la, la.
Yeah, I was going to say, from someone else would be perfect.
Exactly. But they do want to know, right? Like they're very curious, and it's pretty cool.
That is incredible. And yeah, I think the Junior Academy, again, just being able to have that knowledge as power is a pretty amazing thing. And you're right, that younger generation, there's so much more, I want to say, just curious, I think, or a little bit, and it's just different than it used to be. And I think that's pretty awesome too. Yeah. And so let's talk about your book, because you've got your best-selling author. Okay.
My first book, The Simplicity Project, which is, that became bestseller in 2012 when we first released it. And then I did a second edition, 2015, which just actually in November, we got the call that I'm now a Canadian national bestseller, which was really, thank you. And, for me, I did not write this book the conventional way. I didn't work with a publishing house. I self-published. And so I really I pimped myself out, honestly, with this book. Like I booked all the book talks. I went on, booked my own tours, workshops, everything. And the book, I never thought I would write a book ever. Even when I was in the process of doing it, I was like, what am I doing? I'm a speaker, not a writer, right? That was the story I told myself.
Yeah.
But it came from a place of, I was teaching so many workshops, and I had all these stapled together pamphlets and handouts. And my husband one day was just like, we literally don't have any more room for this. You need to put it all in a book. And he said to me, wouldn't it just be easier to have it all in one thing to give somebody? And I was like, yes, it would. How would I do that?
Yeah.
And it just, the universe listens when you start to talk out loud and you start to dream. And the next week I was going to this networking lunch, and the first lady who stood up to speak was a publisher who helped women self-publish.
Oh my goodness. Meant to be.
Yeah. Right. So I went up to her and I said, look, I have this idea. I have all of these things. And she said, how about this? Why don't you just bring me all of these work, and we'll tell you if you have a book there.
Yeah.
And she called me up a couple of weeks later and was like, you definitely have a book, but we need to help you because you go from first person to third person to
yes, all those fun things, right?
Right. So so the Simplicity Project is really the foundational elements that anyone needs to know and can benefit from, in terms of like, where do you begin? This is not a diet. This is just, how do you want to feel and show up in the body you want to have for the next 30 years, not the next 30 days.
Exactly.
And really simplifying. And then I have 2 cookbooks. I have the Simplicity Kitchen, which I co-created with my kids and my family. And then I have the Simplicity Body. And so they're all gluten-free and dairy-free. And, my husband and I both run our own companies. We have kids. We get the busyness. And so these recipes are all like 40 minutes or less.
That is amazing. Wow. Yeah. And so can they head to your website? I want to have some links on for the books, obviously. Yes. So from your website, are they on Amazon as well?
Yep. Perfect. So Amazon or jenpike.com /shop, and they can see them all there.
Amazing. And I like the fact that you've chosen simplicity, because you're right. We're all busy and we need to have that simplistic part to our health, because a lot of times that's the first thing that we let go.
Absolutely. It really truly is. And especially as women, and I do see it in men as well too. It's that we put our career, we put our kids, we put everything else higher and higher above, thinking that that's how we actually show up to serve and to be there for people. But, you know, as I've explained to our kids over and over again, you have to start by giving yourself permission to fill your own cup in a really loving way so that there is enough good of you to be able to pour from. And yeah, I think, you know, ultimately, regardless of who you are listening to this or what it is you do for a living, I think everyone would agree that even just hearing the word simplicity drops your shoulders, and it is ultimately what we're all after.
Yeah. Well, and the other part too, and it really resonated when you said, you know, it shows people where to start. I think that's one of the hardest things sometimes. It's just like there may be so many things going on or so many things happening. It's like, where do I start? And then they don't start because they're so overwhelmed by where to start the project that they just don't do it at all.
I think too, it's that we have been so miseducated in, you know, magazines and media and a lot of the information to focus on the end goal. So we get so glued to the end objective of weight loss or healing the hormonal imbalance or, you know, getting rid of the acne, whatever it may be, that if that doesn't happen tomorrow, then we're just like, well, I can't do it. Instead of, let's just be honest with people that this is actually going to take some work and some time, and you have to have patience, but you also have to have a level of grace and compassion with yourself. And I think those of us as practitioners that are leading from that place, we are doing a better job with our clients in terms of being really honest, but we're also helping to create a better prepared individual.
Absolutely. And a better prepared individual with what the results, like when they're going to, right? Not having some more realistic expectations, because that is a big one where people want instantaneous gratification. And when they don't get that, all of a sudden it's too hard or I'm done, right? So education around that and the time that it takes to invest. Remember, it didn't take us a week to get where we are, right? If we have adrenal insufficiencies or hormone imbalances, it took us a long time most likely to get there. So we have to make the same investment to get back. I know that different food choices obviously have a ton to do with hormones. And so you talked a little bit about the different, you know, food plans and things that are included with your Hormone Project. But can we talk a little bit about diet just for, you know, some people listening, they might be interested in hearing how some different foods affect the levels of hormones?
Yeah, absolutely. So first thing I would start off with is looking at the relationship with food in terms of how you're combining it. So I think that having stable blood sugar is the fundamentals to, you know, being in control of what you're choosing, literally from like the point of what's going in your grocery cart and in your fridge to in your mouth. And so if you can be focusing on getting protein, fat, and fiber at each of those meals to stabilize your blood sugar. And so some, you know, ideas of that would be, if you're going to have something, you know, in the morning for breakfast, choosing things like eggs with sauteed veggies or an omelet, some sliced avocado, a really complete smoothie, which I can, you know, elaborate on, versus a bagel and cream cheese or coffee and a piece of toast with butter. You know, I know it's, people look at it because it's quick and it's easy, but you're going to have an insulin spike and then you're going to crash. And that's going to put this roller coaster in motion that you can't really chase that down once you have sent it off on its wheels. And so getting grounded in the morning with your food choices, I think, is really important. So some of those options I gave, if you're somebody who loves more warming foods and you love things like oats and oatmeal, that is totally fine. But let's add in some fresh fruit as opposed to, you know, maple syrup and brown sugar. Add in some nuts and some seeds to really ground that, to give you more fiber, to feel more satiated, right? So that the brain is like, I'm good, we can move along, and you can be good for a few hours as opposed to needing something again in 30 minutes. When you're doing something like smoothies, which are great for a lot of people simply because they're quick and easy and we can add a lot to it, be careful you're not doing things like using juice as your base, adding in, you know, sugar flavored yogurts, making it fruit heavy, as opposed to something that would be really balancing would be a non-dairy milk source and some water, adding in a really good quality, you know, plant-based or maybe collagen-based protein powder so that you're getting that in. If you're a female, I love seed cycling for the hormones. So in that first half of your cycle, you'd be doing ground flax or pumpkin and the second half sunflower or sesame. And this is amazing to also support the bowels, right? We really want to be having a good quality bowel movement in those first hours of waking,
Yeah.
to set things in motion. And then adding in, whether it's your greens, I love adding in frozen cauliflower or zucchini or broccoli. And things like the greens or the cauliflower and broccoli is a great way to get some of those sulforaphane rich foods that have things naturally like indole-3 carbinol and DIM that are going to help to bind to excess estrogen.
Mm-hmm.
And they'll help things like the ease of your menstrual cycle, decreasing your breast tenderness. So those are some good things. And yes, you can still have fruit in there, but maybe do something lower glycemically, like your organic berries.
Yeah.
That being said, I am never the practitioner who's going to tell you not to eat fruit as part of your plan. I think it's a beautiful food. I think we need to be getting it in. But if you're doing a cup of cherries, a whole banana, half an apple, it's just a bit too much. Spread that throughout your day. And then when you're looking at the rest of your day, I love combinations of warming foods and raw foods. So we are in spring right now. We both live in Canada. So we are coming out of the winter, that fertile void. This is the time maybe to start to incorporate a little bit more raw, but still keep some of the warmth in. So roasted veggies are a great way. Soups, stews, spices, and herbs, which are also super anti-inflammatory. They change the palate in your mouth. So you're not looking for thick, creamy sauces. You're looking for like fresh basil and parsley and cilantro and dill and, using turmeric and curcumin and those types of things to be adding some heat to that food. And even like with salads, if you love salads, you can just do a quick saute to add that little bit of depth and warmth, and then add your lean protein source, on top of it. And looking at your healthy fats. So different oils like avocado oil and olive oil and pumpkin seed oil and sesame oil, blended oils, coconut oil as well too. And, certain things for hormones I love would be like 3 to 5 raw Brazil nuts a day, an incredible source of natural selenium for your body.
Yeah.
And for your thyroid. So there's a lot of food. I say to people, ask yourself this question. Did it fall off a tree? Did it grow from the ground? Did it swim in the ocean or run across land at one point? Yeah. Those are your true whole foods. And so it's not to say that we're never going to have packaged food, but step outside of looking at the calories and the numbers and start to understand what the words in the ingredients mean.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
there should be no hashtags in the ingredients like, number 5, number 7 colors and dyes and, artificial things. So, and the other thing I would say to balance your hormones is how often are you eating? This is really important. It comes back to the blood sugar. If you are constantly eating all day long, you are not stoking your metabolic system. You are stoking your insulin, and insulin is your fat storing hormone. So I really love to get people in the habit of having, a breakfast to break their fast. I typically will start people with time restricted eating with a TRE method where I'll have them go at least 12 hours from their last meal to their first meal. So that would look like, 7 p.m. is dinner. Well, you're not going to eat again now until 7 a.m.
Right.
Most of the women I work with, their sweet spot they find is anywhere with that 12 to 12 or maybe a 14 by 10. I find for a lot of women in my practice going a 16-hour fast to 8-hour eating window, it's a bit too much for them, especially if they're dealing with adrenal issues.
Right.
So I don't feel it's appropriate to give a blanket statement. I think that people have to figure out what really feels good in their body. Yeah. But if you can do a breakfast, a lunch, and a dinner, 3 meals a day, and if you needed to have a snack, put it in the afternoon, because the average person has about 6 hours, if not more, between lunch and dinner. Right. And that's where you're going to start to feel energy tank, cravings come on, patience low. And so that's where I would recommend a really grounded snack in the afternoon, typically around 3 or 4, I find to work well for most people. Yeah. And again, protein, fat, and fiber.
And that was my next question, because that's one of the things that people struggle with, I think, the most is, what do we have for a healthy snack, right? What's the basis of a healthy snack?
Yeah.
I think that's a big one that people struggle with a lot. And so we talked about your book with regards to your kitchen. And so kitchen detox is really important for a lot of people. especially
Yes.
now with the abundance of food allergies, food intolerances that we're seeing that people are having. So let's kind of walk through and just and chat about some of the things in the kitchen that people may not realize they need to detox.
Right. So we're talking food specifically, yes?
Well, I think we could start with food, but maybe roll over into some cleaners, chemical laden cleaners, and things like that.
Okay. They play a huge role in our hormonal
Yeah.
health as well, right?
Yeah.
So food wise, some of the things that we may not recognize would definitely be, dairy, like cow dairy is a massively inflammatory food for a lot of people. In my practice, specifically for women, it's going to be the thing that will push on the button of acne, constipation, skin issues like eczema, psoriasis, just really bad periods, like heavy, painful periods, clotting, a lot of breast tenderness. It is a hormonal based food, right? And that is the reality, is we have to look at the sourcing of this.
Yeah.
We just simply do not have the ability to digest and break it down. And so that would be it. And so dairy, you're looking at how much cheese are you consuming? How much yogurt? Like, we don't think about it in the totality, right? We look at it as like a transactional experience. Well, or I don't have a glass of milk. Okay, but what goes in your smoothie? Do you have whey protein powder in there? Are you gassy and bloated after you have it? Just so you know, that's not a normal response.
Right.
If you're gassy and bloated, that's your body like raising its hand saying, hey there, not doing so well. I actually I'm struggling. And that off gassing is that symptom of struggle.
Yeah.
But when you start to ask people and they go, oh, well, I put a bit of milk in my coffee or my tea, and then I have cereal with milk, then I have cheese and crackers, then I put cheese on my salad, and all of a sudden they're like, huh. So that would be one.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And now we're so lucky to have so many alternatives, right, to dairy out there. And goat and sheep cheese, easier on the body to digest and break down, just a little bit physiologically closer to our own, system and makeup and what we can break down enzyme wise. The next thing would be the grains and gluten. So for a lot of people, they are really struggling. It's a very mucus dampening food in our body. So again, constipation, digestive issues, skin issues, mood issues as well too, brain fog, cognition just not being what it used to be.
Yeah.
I find gluten a huge one. If you have any level of thyroid dysfunction happening, even if you're in that suboptimal range, you have to understand that the antibodies and the proteins within that gluten is directly targeting the healthy tissue of your thyroid, and will also impact your body's ability to actively convert your thyroid hormone from T4 to T3 in the liver. So, gluten, how do you remove this? Start to lean into the grains that never contained gluten in the first place.
Yeah.
Rice, millet, quinoa, teff, buckwheat, which is a confusing one for people.
Because it has the word wheat, yeah.
Yeah, if you can tolerate it, non-genetically modified organic corn as well too might be okay. But some people, they just can't manage the lectins that are in grains and certain foods in general. So if I'm working with somebody who has a lot of inflammatory issues going on, their joints are in pain all the time, they just have a lot of triggers, I'll remove the grains for a period of time to let the body breathe and lift the fog. Yeah. So we do an elimination, and then we'll reintroduce one at a time. And now their body is what's going to let them know. It's no longer me telling them.
Right. Yeah.
The other thing as well would be some of our packaged foods, right? So just, again, leaning into reading the labels, understanding. I think the gluten-free aisle, there's a lot of food in there that's not healthy.
Right.
So it's understanding, have you replaced gluten with sugar and starch?
Yes. And corn, right? A lot of people don't realize, because I have a sensitivity to corn. And so when we're looking at gluten-free options, whether it's crackers or whatever it is, a lot of them are replacing the wheat with corn. And so we're being overexposed to that as well.
And understanding things like xanthan gum, which is used in a lot of gluten-free products. Well, that's derived from corn. Vitamin A palmitate derived from corn. So for people who have severe sensitivities, they have to go on a journey of investigating, because unfortunately the laws when it comes to our food and how they have to actually list things is that, for instance, monosodium glutamate, well, there is more than 40 different names that it can have as a hidden source in food. how in the world is the average person supposed to know
They
that?
can't.
Like, I do
Yeah.
this for a living and I can't rhyme off all 40.
Yeah.
And so that's where the beautiful thing now about having apps in your phone, like the Environmental Working Group and Think Dirty and those types of things, where you can actually scan the barcode and it will let you know some of those key things. So I think that's a beautiful invention.
That is great. Yeah.
Right. And then some of the other things as well too might be, just looking at what some of your sources are of some of those other inflammatory triggers. So if you are dealing with arthritis, rheumatoid arthritis, and that, certain nightshades like your tomatoes, potatoes, eggplant, zucchini, peppers, they may be causing some of those triggers as well too. And we are lucky enough now that there is so much accessibility online where you can literally download recipes that are nightshade free, that, you can see sample meal plans. So I know it can feel overwhelming to people, but sugar is another one that you've got to watch for in the kitchen. Your stimulants. So like, how much coffee are you having in a day? I mean, sugar is a stimulant. How much alcohol? Like, I know we keep hearing all these reports that we want to believe, like, the French have this much wine a week, and then
and it's totally fine, and we're like, what? That doesn't make sense.
Yes. But for us here, it's made differently, and it increases your estrogen as a woman. So again, if you're the woman that has a lot of estrogen excess symptoms in your body, the alcohol, I know you might be thinking that it is how you unwind and relieve stress, but it is contributing to those issues that you have going on. So I think those would be kind of some of my top ones. Soy, if it's processed, can also be a big trigger for a lot of people. So, making sure that I'm not 100% against soy. I actually use it therapeutically in certain forms in the first half of the lunar phase for my menopausal women and for some women that I'm working with hormonally, but it needs to be 100% organic, non-genetically modified, fermented if possible, and cold water washed. So I don't think it is like an evil food, like so many will say. I think there's therapeutic ways to use it. And then outside of that, something that might be irritating you may not recognize could be your eggs.
Yes. Yeah. Actually, surprisingly, a lot of people have issues with eggs. Well,
there's cross reactivity too, right? So if I have somebody who does not do well with dairy, because there is albumin in both egg, like pure egg white, and there is albumin in dairy, there can oftentimes be that connection. So the first thing I'll do to someone is say, let's make sure you're getting the best quality eggs first, because it could actually be what those, like if those chickens or those hens were grain fed and you have grain issues, that could be what's triggering you from the egg. So let's change up the source. Sometimes I'll have them try duck eggs instead.
Okay. Yeah.
And they might do better with those. And then the other thing would be eat the whole egg. Stop fragmenting and only having the white. Like egg is a whole food. So if you want to add a little bit more protein, fine, but have at least one whole egg and then add the egg whites in.
Yeah. And I mean, egg yolks are so rich in vitamins. I mean, choline is one, right?
Choline, exactly.
So people miss that altogether if they're not consuming the whole egg.
And that's the hard thing for women to understand, is that if we don't have healthy cholesterol, you make all your hormones from your cholesterol. So if we're trying to pull a fat out because we're afraid we're going to gain weight and get fat ourselves, you're looking in the wrong direction. If you're truly wanting to keep your body composition healthy, you've got to look at your ratio of your macronutrients, your carbs, fats, and proteins, and what are the sources and where is it coming from? Because as women, we need to have enough fat in order to truly thrive.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that almost takes us back to kind of the 80s. I'm a little bit older than you, but I feel like the 80s, right? Where everything, we can't have any fat, don't eat butter and all these things. And you're just like, oh my gosh. And it's really hard sometimes to get people out of that mindset, right? When it's been kind of drilled into them.
And this is where I think, unfortunately, most people have been educated in their health by a diet trend, not by actual education. And so many of these studies that are done on different diets, they are done on men, or they are not looking at the female in different phases of her actual own cycle and phases of her life. Because the woman in her 20s that is in her deep fertility years or in her early 30s is going to need something different than the woman who is moving into her perimenopausal years. Absolutely. Or who's on the other side of that. And that's the other thing is, you know, we look at something and we take it for, you know, face value, and everyone's trying to apply the same principles and rules, and totally not listening to their own body's rhythm.
Because everybody, as you change through life, things are going to change. It's not going to stay static, right? And we have to pay attention to that. And so I want to quickly touch on, because we're almost out of time, but I definitely want to touch on those cleaners for detoxing the kitchen, because I think that is such a huge part. People don't understand the impact that those commercial chemically laden cleaners have on their health.
I know. Well, they're endocrine disruptors. Yeah, it is. And here's the thing is that they've actually all been recognized as carcinogens that can lead to and cause cancer by, you know, the higher B's. So this isn't just us holistic practitioners pulling this out of thin air. And so, you know, right now we are in a time where everybody is stocking up on Lysol and on chemical wipes. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, your hormones and your thyroid, because these are xenoestrogens, which means, so the word xeno means foreign. Okay. And so these are foreign estrogens, but they create mimicry in your body where they look so similar to the hormones that your own body is producing that your cells unfortunately allow them in. And now this is where we can have problems on a cellular level, on a DNA level. And these can lead to different issues. So top surface things would be like respiratory issues, but again, hormones, thyroid. So go back to honestly what your grandmother used to clean. Things like white vinegar, baking soda, lemon, essential oils. I'm a huge fan of essential oils. I love doTERRA, but doTERRA, Young Living, whatever it may be that you're using.
On Guard.
That's
my go-to.
Oh my gosh.
On Guard, everything. My hand soap, my toothpaste, my laundry detergent, everything's On Guard.
So we make all of our own at home. And I have actually DIY videos on my YouTube channel showing people how to do this. Very inexpensive. Order your glass amber bottles that can have the spray tops on or caps depending. And you literally make all of your own cleaners. It sounds arduous. I understand when I'm saying you're going to make everything. People are like, but first of all, what else are you doing right now? Second, it'll take you one time of learning how to do this. And this is how easy it is. Pretend this is my glass amber bottle. I put in my 10 drops of On Guard. I might add in like lemongrass or basil or, you know, tea tree, whatever it is, wild orange. I put it under my tap, my filtered water, and I fill it. Yeah. And I'm done.
Exactly. It's so simple.
And you get rid of all of this clutter. All of these bottles. So you're actually doing a better thing for the environment. It's going to reduce what you are spending on when you go to the grocery store. And you use the same formula for every area of your house. When you need to clean your windows, honestly, white vinegar will do the job. Using newspaper does that. There, you know, if you have stains on things, lemon essential oil will get it out. And you can visit the websites of like doTERRA and Pinterest, and you'll see all of these different ways that you can simplify your body care. So in my book, The Simplicity Project, I have an entire chapter and I name brands. I talk about what you're looking for because your skin is your largest organ. So everything you put on your skin gets into your bloodstream and your lymphatic system immediately. It does not go through your stomach and your filtering organs to then get everywhere else. And so your makeup, your shampoo, your soap, your lotions, all of those things, this is a beautiful time to do a purge and a clean out and lean into, you know, carrier oils and essential oils and keep it as simple and basic as possible. And other things that'll help you with that is start to dry brush, like stimulate that lymphatic system. Move your body every day, ladies. This is so critical for your hormones. A stagnant body is one that is going to accumulate and hold on to that toxicity more. And that's going to exacerbate your symptoms. So move your body, move your bowels. Like we want to keep things in a steady state of flow in order to really be our healthiest.
Absolutely. So easy to make your own at-home cleaners that are healthy, that don't have any chemicals. And so I will include the link to your YouTube,
Thank you.
Simplicity Tea Lee. Yep, absolutely. And that way they can watch the videos on how to make those items and detox their kitchens. And again, if you want to get your hands on any of Jenn's books, you can go to her website, jennpike.com, or on Amazon. And so I just wanted to thank you again, Jenn, for being with us today. So much amazing information, and your program sounds fantastic. I think you have another one starting soon, right? Or is it full? Or?
April 27th.
Okay,
April, we have 6 spots left as of yesterday for this next one. So it starts April 27th. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Thank you again for joining us. And thanks to everybody who's watching. If you enjoyed this video, give us a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel on YouTube. And if you're on your favorite podcast host, just make sure you give us a like, and we'll see you next time. Thanks for listening to today's show. Head over to Pitel-Killah.com to gain access to some amazing free resources that will help you gain energy, erase debilitating symptoms, and be the best version of you. Remember to give this podcast a like and follow me on social media at Pitel-Killah. I'm here every 2 weeks with a brand new episode of the Human Optimization Podcast. Until next time.